let me clear the decks a little bit here, and then I'm just going to let Jon talk about the Cat trade and his latest experience with Karl Anthony Towns. This is the Jon Krawczynski Show. We're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services Studios. We want to thank Princeton's Lakers, Chew Vision Institute, TSR Injury Law, 612-TSR Time, Shepherd Goods and Lamb Chops Clothing Line, and Head Flyer Brewing. And let you know the best way to listen to this show or any shows at our growing network is to subscribe to them. Find the show you like, subscribe. It's the easiest way to listen. It's also free. We do appreciate it. And with that, Jon, start off the Jon Krawczynski Show by just telling me everything you want to tell me about first Cat and then the Cat trade.
Yeah, I mean, what a week, I guess, is what I would say. What a last 4 days, really. This thing, the thing that is kind of, I've tried to wrap my head around with this Karl Anthony Towns trade is the reason I think that it caught everyone by surprise, myself included, Karl Anthony Towns included, all the players in the team included, is that we knew that eventually, sometime, Karl Anthony Towns would probably have to be traded, just given the collective bargaining agreement, given his contract, given, where the Timberwolves are now and where they're going. And we'd heard the New York Knicks' interest forever and ever. But it was at a point where it really looked like, hey, okay, they're at least starting the season this way. Worst case scenario, if things are going the wrong way, we're going to go to the trade deadline and in February, and then maybe they can start looking at real options to move him. But then it comes up Friday night. I'm at a homecoming football game for St. Anthony Village High School. And I get a call that says, hey, we're in the zone here and it's about to happen. And it just, it did floor me. And when, my partner Sham Shrani and I sent the tweet that kind of broke the news, I was behind the concession stand at the stadium and just kind of doing it and hustling through it. But then, in the middle of all the chaos, I just kind of caught my breath and said, holy bleep, this actually happened. So it was really something that, you could see coming around the corner, but I thought the corner was further down. It ends in 9-year run here that, was terrific at times, was frustrating at times, was maybe not quite what fans hoped when they drafted him number 1 overall, but certainly as, in the last 2 to 3 years really got to finish on a high note. And, we'll talk a little bit about it, but I would just say, there are debates about Cat, the player. You can, some people love him. Some people hate him. Some people, like to watch him play. Some people really don't like to watch him play. Cat, the person, Cat, the heart that is in Karl Anthony Towns, that will never be disputed. Just a really caring, kind guy, who, wants to be loved, wants to be part of things. And sometimes that was great for him. And sometimes maybe that worked against him a little bit, but I'm going to miss him. We spent a lot of time together over the years, and now that he goes, I totally understand why the Wolves made this deal. But I also still will miss having the big guy around.
Yeah. And I didn't know him as well as you did, but I enjoyed him. I liked him. I thought he was a great guy. Also, I have, you cover the team like nobody else. I have 2 behind the scenes insights that probably aren't public knowledge. One was just some of the things he did to help people that were never publicized, and I will publicize them because he didn't want them publicized, but he did some incredible charitable things that he didn't have to do, that nobody would have ever asked him to do, that he didn't gain anything from. The other side is, as much as I liked him, as much as you liked him, as much as you can look at his resume and say, hey, multiple All-Star, won a lot of games, helped the franchise turn things around. I do wonder about, when it comes to pure basketball, if there were some people in the organization who were just like, man, do you really trust him? Do you trust him in a big game? Do you trust him to make the big shot? Do you think that's fair?
Yeah, absolutely. It is fair. I think he's probably the most naturally talented player that I've covered in a Timberwolves uniform. I'm talking the game comes so easy to him, and he works very hard at it, but like it's just in him that when he is rolling and when he is going good, it's breathtaking to watch. And he's done some things on the court that are truly phenomenal. There are also things that I do think that the team, was kind of looking at and saying, okay, going forward here, not just for this next year, but for the next 5 or 6 years, is this the most sustainable way to build a contender and keep that window open with, not only just with the contract, which was, a huge thing, but I do think like we have seen Karl play very well in the playoffs against Phoenix, against Denver. We have seen him play very poorly in the playoffs against Dallas. He had, a previous series against his first series against Houston is, the series against the Nuggets a couple of years ago. There were things that he did, with the offensive fouls and the fouling on defense, that were detriments. Absolutely. And that I think that sometimes they had difficulty sort of getting through to him in terms of like, hey, this is what we need to tweak and change to get you to be even more effective than you already are. So, there was certainly a stubbornness sometimes to his game, that I do think, one of the takeaways in terms of trying to digest this trade, is, it would be easy to look at it and say, well, the Wolves lost the trade because they gave away the best player. I do think that Karl-Anthony Towns is the best player in this trade, but internally, I do think that the Timberwolves are pushing back, pretty strongly that they got really any worse in this deal. I think they like DiVincenzo, they like Randall, and they also like the flexibility really that this provides them to continue to make moves in the future to surround Anthony Edwards with the right talent to stay relevant here. And so this was a financial decision in some respects, but also there are basketball reasons that this may very much help the Timberwolves. I think that's part of the calculus of making this deal and then making it right now, just before training camp, to give this new look Wolves team every bit of the chance to just come together, to gel, to build chemistry, and to kind of get ready to go in the regular season.
I like the deal. I understand the deal. I also think there's a big mystery here, and that is, how will Julius Randle play with these teammates while being thrown into the situation while facing a lot of pressure? Is he going to take long twos and stop the ball, or is he going to get into the spirit of a free-flowing offense and recognizing that Edwards is the number one guy here? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that it's really funny, Jim. Like the sort of comparisons between Cat and Randall are just uncanny. Now they play different games. Cat is much more of a 3-point shooter than Randall is. Randall's more bully ball. But they are two players who produce at very high levels, have all-star appearances, have all NBA appearances, played big parts in their teams, and huge featured roles, but there's also question marks about both of them. With Julius Randle, he has not played well in the playoffs. That's true. The other thing is that historically, he has been a ball stopper. He has been a guy who likes to dribble the ball, who likes to go one-on-one ISO and have a ball in his possession for 5-10 seconds and then shoot. And one thing that we have heard Chris Finch talk about time and time again with the offense is when it's not working, the ball gets sticky, he calls it. And Randall is a sticky player. So how they incorporate him is going to be such a key to making this trade work. I think DiVincenzo is going to be terrific here. I think he's going to fit in seamlessly. I think it's going to be a great addition. With Randall, it's going to be a little bit of more of a process, I think, to make him and Gobert and Ant all kind of work together in the right ways. And the good thing about this is that Chris Finch coached Julius Randle in New Orleans. He has a very great insight into the player, into the person, into all of that. And so there's no way they make this trade if Chris Finch doesn't have some kind of plan to make this work and figure it out. But that is the piece that is going to have to click into place to make this a good trade for the Timberwolves. And I will be highly interested to see how Finch incorporates him, what they do to both make Julius Randle feel comfortable, but also to make this team feel comfortable, and how they try to help Julius Randle address some of the real questions in his game, just like they were trying to address the questions in Cat's game when he was here.
No doubt about it. So much more to get to. We do want to remind you we're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services Studios, and we want to hear more about Princeton's Liquors.
Princeton Liquors, Maple Grove. Bill Princeton and the Princeton family have been in the liquor business forever and ever. If you want, stop by Princeton's Liquors, especially, you can get anything you want there kind of in the alcoholic beverage, adult beverage vein, but especially there if you're looking for a great craft beer selection and if you're looking for great bourbon. They have wide varieties, the high end, the affordable end, all sorts of different unique products and brands and flavors that will entice anybody. So if you're looking for good bourbon, if you're looking for good craft beer, go to Princeton's Liquors. But you want great wine, you want great spirits, you want other things, they have you covered as well. Bill Princeton was a member of the Timberwolves and Lynx family. He wore the Crunch costume back in the day as an intern. So go in and support a community guy that supported us as well. Princeton's Liquors in Maple Grove.
And let's also hear more about your experience with True Vision Institute. We were at Timberwolves Media Day on Monday, and you got a lot of interesting looks.
Yeah. It's, you're kind of showing up around. Everyone's used to seeing me with the glasses. It's kind of always been my look really for the last 15 years or so. Haven't worn contacts a lot lately. But ultimately decided after, as those glasses were kind of wearing out and I was looking to get a new prescription, I said, can we just ditch these things? I'm so tired of having to go in all the time, every couple of years, get a new prescription, find the cool glasses that look good and are stylish and all that stuff. It was a pain in the butt. So I went to True Vision in Bloomington and had LASIK surgery. And I am telling you, it was one of the best decisions that I ever made, just to be able to go through life now without glasses, without contacts. And one of the other things, Jim, I was at this weekend, I was at my daughter's soccer games, and it was late September. It's 88 degrees, bright sun. And I got to wear just normal, regular sunglasses. I didn't have to go pick out prescription sunglasses and have to find ones that work for my prescription and do all that and mess with that. I can just grab regular pair of sunglasses, throw them on, and forget about it. And that's all thanks to True Vision, the great people at True Vision. Go to truevision.com to set up a consultation. The people are wonderful. Dr. Chu is terrific. And you will be wondering after you do it, why you didn't do it 10 years earlier, just like I did.
We're going to be talking about how Randall and DiVincenzo fit in for a long time. I think this is a good moment to have you take us through the financial reasoning behind the move and the financial realities behind the move and how it's going to set the Wolves up in the next year or two.
Yeah. So this is really important when you kind of evaluate what you think about the trade in general, because when at first glance, when you see the Timberwolves traded Karl-Anthony Towns and it's 4 years and $220 million, and they're getting Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo back, and they're saving a bunch of money in luxury tax, you say to yourself, well, this is just Glenn Taylor being cheap. Like, all he wants to do is save a couple of bucks, and he's going to compromise their ability to compete for championships because of that. Or it's, well, you know what? Mark Lowry and Alex Rodriguez were kind of getting word to Tim Connolly that he needs to get rid of Karl-Anthony Towns so they don't have to pay him should they win their arbitration against Glenn Taylor in November. And I can tell you that that's just not the way that this deal played out. Tim Connolly had the full green light to go into this season with Karl-Anthony Towns and play and pay a huge luxury tax bill and go for the championship that way. But in this new economic environment that the collective bargaining agreement has put into place in the NBA, the making this deal does help them financially. They're going to save a bunch of money. There's no doubt about it. But really what it does is it charts a path forward for them to get under the second apron next season, not this season, but next season. And the apron levels are levels of spending that once you cross them, especially the second apron, once you cross that threshold and you're paying $190 million a year, $188 million a year for your payroll, it not only brings a stiffer luxury tax penalty, but it also brings very strict restrictions on what you can do from a team building perspective. It very severely limits the trades that you can make. You cannot take in any more money than you send out in trade. They have to match almost dollar for dollar. It kind of prevents the free agents that you can bring in. You're basically limited to league minimum, vet minimum guys and no one else. It also, if you are in the second apron or past the second apron for multiple years in a row, it can force you to bump your first round pick down to the end of the first round. And so all of these kind of team building machinations that you need to continue surrounding Anthony Edwards with good young talent were not available to the Timberwolves had Karl Anthony Towns stayed. The other part about it is if Karl Anthony Towns stayed, you're almost certainly saying goodbye to Naz Reid. You're definitely saying goodbye to Naz Reid. You're probably saying goodbye to Nickeil Alexander-Walker as well. And the amount of money that you can spend, how you can afford to keep guys, it just would not have worked out for the Timberwolves. And so by making this trade, you get a couple of guys back who are really good players. First of all, like they're going to help this team from a playing standpoint, but also their contracts are such that it just opens up so many more doors for Tim Connolly and for this front office to continue to build this team. And so keeping Karl Anthony Towns would have basically made this season championship or bust. Like you have to go and win the title to justify doing it. And moving him and doing it this way is they still believe that they're right in the thick of it for the Western Conference, that they can come out of the Western Conference. Tim Connolly said yesterday at Media Day that they are discussing championship within the walls of the front office and the coaching staff. But it also just gives them more flexibility going forward so that they can continue to add people, keep the players that they want to, and keep this window open as long as possible.
Let's get into some more observations about the way Tim Connolly has run this team since he got here. First, I want to remind you, our longest running sponsor is TSR Injury Law, 612-TSR Time, 612-TSR Time. We've gotten to be friends with Steve Terry. He's a great guy. We trust everybody and like everybody we've met over there. If I were ever injured, I would call that number because I know they'd take good care of me. They would take all the hassles away. They would fight for me. They would not charge me unless they win my case. And guess what? They win a lot of cases. That's why you see them everywhere. That's why they're buddies with Naz Reid. 612-TSR Time, 612-TSR Time. John, tell us about Shepherd Goods and Lamb Chops clothing line.
SGLambchops.com is the place to go. Use the promo code JONK20 for 20% off anything at Shepherd Goods and Lamb Chops clothing. You looking for really comfortable, really stylish casual wear, hoodies, shorts, shirts, t-shirts, hats, all of that stuff. They have you covered at Shepherd Goods and Lamb Chops clothing. They are the best shorts I've ever had. They are super high quality. Everything that's made is going to last you a very long time, and it's going to look good. You can wear it at home watching football on the weekend. You can wear it out in the North Loop. If you want to just go and hang out with your friends and grab a couple of drinks, you can bring it anywhere. It's super versatile. It looks good. It feels good. And oh, by the way, Craig and Jordan, you see them courtside at Lynx and Timberwolves games. This is another local company that is out and involved in the community, and they're just doing great things. So go to sglambchops.com and use the promo code JONK20 for 20% off anything you can get there. And just very much enjoy it. You're going to look good. You're going to feel good, and you're going to be just even more embedded in the community, just like we like here at the Jon Krawczynski Show. sglambchops.com.
And John, welcome back, longtime sponsor, Head Flyer Brewing. We've done some really cool live shows there. We've had a blast hanging out with people there. Through your influence and the graciousnness of the Timberwolves, we've had Tim Connolly and Chris Finch out there, as well as the great broadcaster Michael Grady. Tell us what's going on at Head Flyer these days.
Yeah, it's Wolf season upon us now, and so that means Head Flyer season with Talk North and with this show, but it's always Head Flyer season all year round. And I mean, this is the perfect time of year to go over to Head Flyer. They have an unbelievable setup over there with a great tap room, open and airy. They have kind of a patio deck right outside that you can sit on and in the crisp fall air and have some great beers. Wicked Jump Shot is my favorite, but any kind of type of beer that you want, you can go to Head Flyer and they will have it for you. And Jim, like you said, we will have some live shows and things again at Head Flyer. It's a wonderful venue. They're wonderful partners for us. We will be working on those and keeping you updated. But until we do, just go on into Head Flyer on a weeknight, on a weekday, on a weekend, whenever you need. Get some unbelievable beers and some great service at Head Flyer Brewing in Northeast Minneapolis.
Tim Connolly might be the most entertaining member of the organization, and they have Anthony Edwards.
Please expound.
I mean, you don't know what this guy's going to do. This is crazy.
Yes.
He comes, I wrote about it in my column the other day. He comes in and, he figures how to work the coffee machine, trades for Rudy Gobert. Then he goes into last year's draft. He has this year's draft. He has absolutely nothing. And he ends up with the 8th pick and Rob Dillingham. And here we are about to go, getting ready for media day. And he trades a franchise cornerstone for Julius Randle, 2 Tibbs, by the way, Julius Randle, DiVincenzo, a first-round pick, and financial flexibility right when we're all thinking, okay, how good can this team be? I mean, even if you hate each move he's made, you'd have to say this is incredibly. It takes guts to do what he does and has done. It also takes a lot of savvy to actually make moves like this and have them work out.
Yes. I mean, there are people who have those positions and play things safe and just do things to try to keep their job. And, what can I do that's conventional that I can always explain away if it doesn't work? All these things. That has not been the Tim Connolly tenure for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Every move has been a jaw dropper, a big time, big swing. Rudy Gobert, the D'Angelo Russell trade, Karl Anthony Towns, Rob Dillingham. Like he is doing, he does some small things. He does some things on the margins and things. That's great. But his tenure has been defined by, he's like the modern baseball player. It's, you either hit a home run or you strike out. Like that's it. Like, and that's what he's doing. And let's face it. He's made a lot of contact. When you look at what he's been able to do with this team since he's arrived, every move, it seems like, except the D'Angelo Russell one, I think everyone, that was pretty much like, okay, yeah, this is universally like, this is good. Other than it's like, well, is Conley too old? I don't know.
I'll interrupt. Yeah, I will say that I knew I think most people who look at the team the way you and I do thought, oh yeah, you had to get rid of D'Lo and he got pretty good value in return. But I think there were a lot of people in the fan base and a lot of people in local media who thought they were trading a good shooter for an old point guard who couldn't play anymore.
Yeah, no, it's a good point.
Who Nickeil Alexander-Walker was.
True. And so like I've sort of chuckled a little bit at some of the reaction to this trade. A lot of it actually, I do see a lot of Conley's an idiot. What is he doing? And look, you can disagree with the trade and maybe it doesn't work out. I'm not saying that you just have to blindly follow him and just that, but I do think he has built up a bit of a level of trust here that he knows what he's doing. Like there is logic behind all of the moves that he's making. And, a couple of people kind of have, some of my friends and stuff have sent texts to me like, what is he doing? Like, please talk me off the ledge, on this trade. What's happening? And I just said, just think exactly what you thought about the Rudy Gobert deal
Yep.
and how that eventually worked out. There is no bigger Karl Anthony Towns supporter kind of than I am. Like, I ride with him. Like, I think that, I know that he has flaws as a player. I know that there have been some kind of personality things and quirks that he has. But in general, I think he's a really good dude with a really good heart, who's really talented. And in the start of his career, he was put in an adverse situation by the organization as much as it was his fault. So I am on board fully with Cat, but I also do look at this deal as, as a basketball observer, and can understand all of the points that are made to support it. And when you put that up with Tim Connolly's track record, both here and in Denver, I think like the hyperventilating of that does come of this, like, what is this guy doing? How could he make this move? Well, he's proven that he knows what he's doing. Again, it could not work out. It might fall flat, but it's not some knee jerk thing that he's doing. That said, it's also just incredibly ballsy what he's doing. Like, that's what, he is operating with a confidence, and an aggression that we rarely see, in executives. And it's just reshaped everything about this franchise.
And it's really fun when you're around somebody as a journalist who knows more than you do. You know what I mean? I mean, there have been times in local, when I picked out the column, I was, it was like I'm covering Tim Brewster and David Kahn, and I'm covering people who don't even know anything about their own sport. It was just bizarre. And when you talk to Cheryl Reeve, you might disagree with Cheryl Reeve on any given subject, but you don't doubt her savvy and her knowledge. That's the same thing with Tim Connolly and Chris Finch. You might disagree with the tactic, you might disagree with the approach, but you cannot doubt their knowledge, the diligence, the intelligence. And somebody was telling me recently that there were a lot of people in the Wolves organization, analytically driven people in the Wolves organization, were telling them, a year or two ago, hey, Naz Reid, he's just not that good a player when you really look at the analytics. And Tim Connolly's like, no, this is my guy. This guy is going to be great. We just need to, put him in the right position. I mean, that's the kind of insight you want from somebody running a local franchise, somebody who isn't a prisoner of fear or the past or pure analytics, someone who can actually see around corners the way that the average person can't.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I think one of his biggest strengths is that you really do pick up on being around him, having conversations not only with him, but with people around the league about him. He is deeply connected throughout the league. He has his finger on the pulse all over the place. Like, there are, he has great relationships with a lot of people. He keeps tabs on things. And so it just feels like he has a good grasp of the league and of his team and what needs to happen. And so, you know that the decisions that are being made are educated decisions. He's putting a ton of thought into it. He's doing a lot of background research. Matt Lloyd, Dell Demps, John Wallace, a bunch of his staff are also connected and plugged in and doing all of the work as well. And so what the strength of this front office is how connected they are throughout the league. And so they're leaving no stone unturned. They understand everything that's going on. And again, it does not guarantee success. It doesn't mean that everything they do is going to work out perfectly, but they have a handle on the job and on the league in a way that I do think is unique. And that is, that certainly, I think, played a role in this Karl Anthony Towns deal. I think that they looked at this package that they got from New York and said, we don't think that there's going to be something better that's out there around the corner. We know what the market is for Karl Anthony Towns. We know, what would be available to us if we just decided, all right, we have to trade him. And so they look at it as they're maximizing Cat's value. So, I trust that they put in that work and that they have a good feel for that. Just knowing how they operate. So that's a big thing that you're like, as you said, it's not always the case and hasn't always been the case for people who have run the Timberwolves front office.
Tell us about the first round pick.
So the first round pick, you at first you think, well, Detroit Pistons, they're terrible. That's going to be an amazing first round pick. It is heavily protected. So this year it's protected for the top 13, which, I mean, it's guaranteed that the Pistons are going to be in the lottery again. So they're not going to get it this year. Then next year it's the top 11, and then the third year it's the top 9. And if it doesn't convey in any of those years, it turns into a second round pick. So on that side of things, there's a chance that it doesn't work out the way that they want. That said, it's still a valuable piece because this team gave away a bunch of picks in the Rudy Gobert deal. They also just traded their 2031 first round pick to get Rob Dillingham. So they are asset poor in terms of stockpiles of draft picks that you can use or trade using trades. And so it's not like a golden ticket, but it does give them one other piece that if they want to get another deal done, throw the Pistons pick in there and see if that's enough to sweeten to continue to add. So it will help them, I think. And my guess is that they eventually trade it, but it's not going to be like, the pick that Rosas gave to the Warriors for D'Lo, that turned into Jonathan Kuminga. Like that's not going to happen.
Do you have a Twitter question for us?
I don't, but I just been so hectic and chaotic, but I'm going to tell a quick story to kind of close it. Wrote about this at The Athletic this morning and, just thinking about Karl Anthony Towns and his 9 years here. And I absolutely understand and am behind or even support like the debate about his playing career here, like what he did on the court, how much of, the winning was due to him and how much it was for Ant and others. I understand people who tear their hair out when he complains at the officials. I understand who, when they see him commit offensive fouls, it's like, come on, Cat, what are you doing? Like that can be frustrating. And that there was a lot of that over the years. But in terms of the human being that Karl Anthony Towns is, I just think, this story really encapsulates it. We break the story on Friday night. Now it's probably about 9 o'clock, 8:30 or 9, Friday night and breaks. And Karl Anthony Towns had no idea like it was coming. Tim Connolly drove to his house, as I reported, and told him Friday night that, hey, we're going to trade you to the Knicks. And it surprised him. He had no idea that it was actually going to get done. So he's shocked. It's chaotic. Everyone's trying to figure out what's going on. And I get a text message at 12:30 a.m. early Saturday morning. So like 4 hours after he's been traded. And so the worst part about this whole thing, Jim, was that it wasn't breaking the news to the world. I didn't care about that. That's fine. We did it. When I broke the news to my daughter, Nita, she cried. She's a huge, huge Cat fan. Owen, my son, is a huge Cat fan as well. We brought, I over the years, like I'd brought them to practice a couple of times. I brought them to a couple of Cat's charity things, to a basketball camp. So, Cat had, said hello to them a few times. He gave them a headband when they were younger, shook their hands, took pictures with them one time at a basketball camp, and just interacted, was very kind to them. But by no means were they, did they see him all the time or anything like that. But they, they had a little bit of a relationship. And at one of the meetings, Cat told Nita and Owen, like, hey, I'll come see you guys play sometime. This is, I'm going to get out there and see you guys, and kind of just a little encouragement. And for little kids to hear that from an NBA player was, it was amazing. Like they were, they walked out of there really feeling like they were friends with Cat. And it was, it was just cool. And over the years, Cat would always ask me about, how's Nita's basketball or how's Owen doing? And, things. And especially when Owen was kind of going through his health issues, he was asking about him all the time. So anyways, 12:30 a.m., a text comes in and says, hey, like, how are the kids doing? And I said, hey, Nita cried herself to sleep. They took it pretty hard. But that just shows you what kind of impact you've had, and that sort of thing. And he said, well, do they have any sports tomorrow? Like, do they have anything going on this weekend? I'm like, what? What are you talking about? Like, well, Nita has a tournament in Blaine. It's game at 10:40 on Saturday morning. And he's like, I'm coming. And I was like, okay, like, sure, yeah, all right, great. But thanks, Carl. That'd be awesome. Go for it. He said, I told her I'd come and watch her play. I'm going to come and watch her play. And, then I was up till 4 a.m. writing, got up in the morning and I saw like Kat had posted a screenshot of him and his father shooting at the Mayo Clinic Square, at 3 a.m. And I'm like, oh, well, he's not coming, and totally understandable. He's got to go to New York. He's got to figure out his whole life. Like he's got to do all this stuff. And so we go to the game. And right before the game starts, I get a message from him and he said, hey, I'm on my way. I was running a little bit late. Things are going on. Didn't sleep much last night. I'm like, well, okay. And right about halftime, he pulls up and comes in and he's at the game and, comes over, we're sitting in the corner of the field at this sprawling complex at National Sports Center, and he's hanging out. We're just kind of chatting a little bit, and he's watching the game. Like he says hello to my son, tells him how proud he is of him, that he's kind of got through his health issues. And then we were just kind of chatting casually about, kind of the whirlwind and all that stuff. And I knew this wasn't the time for an interview. He was just, he was still processing. Everything was raw. So we're watching the game, and then, little kids start to notice like, holy cow, that's Karl Anthony Towns sitting, in the corner, and he's wearing a Timberwolves shirt and a Timberwolves hat. And, he's 7 feet tall, and he's sitting there. He's hard to keep a low profile. So a steady stream of kids come over and they're asking him, they're saying, hey, Karl, wow, can we take a picture? How you doing? And every single one of them, there were dozens of them. He's like, yeah, of course. Come on over. He takes pictures with all these kids. And they're all, I'm so sorry you're leaving. We're going to miss you so much. And he's chatting with them like, hey, like, how's your games going? Like, are you having fun doing all? So he's really, engaging in it. And, a couple parents come up and say, thank you. Thanks for everything, Kat. This is great. And, he's kind of soaking it up. He's smiling, like he's getting a little bit of love on his way out the door, which was really, really nice. And, so then my daughter, at the game's over, my daughter comes over and she can't believe that he's there. And he just grabs her and he pulls her aside to a little, for a little quiet moment. And he has like a whisper to her in her ear for like probably 30 seconds, like a real heartfelt conversation. And he knew that she took it hard. She wears 32, as a jersey number for him. And so like, just kind of seeing the thoughtfulness, like 14 hours after he's traded, he's got a flight to go to New York the next day. He's got a million things to do. He made like probably a 35-minute drive to come out and to see these kids and to, have a little conversation with them and say goodbye to them. It was just kind of an all-time thing that he did. And, I'm a little emotional thinking about it a little bit, just because I think that a lot of people, kind of look at Karl one way and poke fun at him and belittle him and stuff. And I just always saw kind of a different person underneath that. And they would, I think people would say, why do you defend him? Why do you do that? Because I know what kind of person he is. And he showed that in that moment. And it was just, such a cool thing. And those, my kids will remember that for the rest of their life. And so just, a thank you to Karl for everything going out of this. And, it was just, I've never seen an athlete do something like that. And so I thought that kind of illustrates the person that is leaving here, and just was a really, really cool moment.
Wow. Well, we will leave it right there. Thanks, Jon, for great stuff. Thanks to everyone who listens. We do appreciate it. We'll talk to you next week. And I don't know if we'll ever have another show quite like this one.